Welcome back to the Photaudiography podcast. I'm your host Luke, and today I'll be talking all about your editing software and equipment and what I think is best for an editing workflow. Now, if you haven't listened to my previous podcast, please do so now because I give a general overview of a photo editing workflow for photographers, and I'm creating this episode to expand upon it to provide specific suggestions of software and equipment that will make your editing workflow more streamlined and enjoyable. I would first like to start out by saying that Adobe software is probably the most popular in the industry, but there are other software manufacturers that create great photo editing software. The software offerings from Adobe, such as Photoshop and Lightroom, are very powerful, but may have more features than you need for your photo editing workflow. I'll start by talking a little bit about Adobe Bridge. This program is used mostly for organizing your photos and adding keywords and metadata to your photos. You can do some editing from Bridge, but the following two programs are the ones I use the most to organize and edit my photos. Before I go any further, though, I'd like to talk about non-destructive photo editing and what this means. So non-destructive photo editing is a type of editing that leaves your original photo file untouched, but rather the edits are saved in an additional file or catalog depending on your software. The edits can be reversed or changed, and your original photo is still intact. An important thing to keep in mind with non-destructive editing is that your edits are not finalized until you export your image into a new file. I would like to talk about Adobe Lightroom next. Lightroom is a non-destructive photo editing and organizing software program that is my personal favorite piece of photo editing software. I've used Lightroom ever since it was first released, and I have used several versions over the years, and it's truly a powerful piece of software that helps you organize and edit your photos and photo projects. The way Lightroom is laid out makes it very conducive to following the editing workflow that I outlined in the previous podcast episode. When you first open Lightroom, you will need to create a catalog. Personally, for each new project I work on, I create a new catalog. Once you create your catalog, you can import your images into the catalog and begin organizing and editing. You can update the metadata and keywords once your photos are imported. Next, Lightroom gives you many tools to do your preliminary editing, such as geometric corrections, dust and spot removal, tonal adjustments, and color corrections. Lightroom also seamlessly integrates with Adobe Photoshop to do more specialized editing to your photos, and once you are done in Photoshop, it will take you back to Lightroom and you can pick up where you left off. Lightroom also provides a variety of different output options that are powerful yet relatively easy to use. I would next like to talk a little bit about Adobe Photoshop. Photoshop allows you to do many specialized edits and adjustments to your photos. I use Photoshop a lot for my graphic design that I do. There are many online tutorials showing how to do different edits in Photoshop. I don't do a lot of heavy editing in Photoshop, but it is an enjoyable program to experiment with your photos and with editing. Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop are programs designed for professionals, so there can be a bit of a learning curve when starting out with these programs. Adobe Photoshop Elements is a more consumer-oriented version of Photoshop that focuses on having a user-friendly environment while providing some of the powerful editing tools from Photoshop. It is also less expensive than Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom, but does not offer as many features. I have not used Photoshop Elements in over a decade, so I'm not super familiar with the current version, but the basic idea is to provide organization, editing, and sharing all in one user-friendly program. If you're unsure whether you would like to use Adobe Photoshop Elements or Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop, download a free trial of each and see which one meets your needs. Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom have become more affordable with Adobe's subscription plans rather than having to pay the higher price for a perpetual license for one version of the program. But if Photoshop Elements meets your need, you can save some money by using it instead of the more professional-oriented programs. There are other software titles out in the world that may work for your needs besides the offerings from Adobe. Such programs as Affinity Photo, which is available for Windows, Mac, and iPad, offer a good set of editing tools while providing them to you at a lower cost. Another example that I have used is Pixelmator Pro, which is available for the Mac. These software titles are often less expensive than the Adobe counterparts, but they certainly do not provide all the same features, but you may not need all the features that's offered in programs such as Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom. You can also often download for free or purchase software from your camera manufacturer. If you are shooting in RAW and do not want to put money into software, cameras and camera companies will often provide basic editing programs that will work for doing basic editings of your RAW files from your camera. I am most familiar with Nikon's View NX2, which is a simple photo browser with some editing abilities to make adjustments to your photos. This software is provided free on Nikon's website for Windows and Mac computers. There are many free photo editing software titles out on the internet. If you are looking for an editor to do some basic editing or maybe some experimenting with your photos, search online to see what you can find. I know that GIMP is a popular free Photoshop alternative that has been around for a while. Just be careful when downloading software from the internet that you are getting it from a reputable source. Sometimes free programs may be able to do what you want to do when editing your photos. However, they may be more difficult to use or crash more often than the well-known and heavily tested programs such as those offered by Adobe and more well-known companies. It becomes a personal choice at that point if it makes your life easier to pay for the software or to use the free software that may make your editing workflow a little more clunky, but hey, it's free, so that's sort of your decision. Software isn't the only thing you need to consider with editing. You may have heard of Wacom tablets. These tablets are pen input devices for your computer that help make drawing on your computer more ergonomic and easy. Even if you do not do a lot of drawing, if you do a lot of retouching on your photos, this may be a good tool for you to invest in. There are models of this device that are under $100 that you might want to start out getting a less expensive model to see if you use it or if it makes your editing workflow easier for you. I also did want to mention that whatever software or computer system you're using, I highly suggest learning some keyboard shortcuts for tasks that you use a lot, and this will help you save a lot of time and make your editing easier. Alright, I think that's enough bad advice I have for you for now, so I'll see you later, Shutterbugs.